You know, in manufacturing, there's this one number that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how you're performing. It's called OEE, or Overall Equipment Effectiveness. Honestly, it's the ultimate measure of how well a machine, or even an entire production line, is really doing. So let's break down what it is and why it matters so much.
So let me just ask you this. How can you be sure your equipment is actually living up to its full potential? I mean, are you really getting the most out of every single minute it's scheduled to run? It sounds like a simple question, but, well, the answer can be surprisingly complex.
Think of your factory's efficiency like a giant puzzle. It's pretty easy to spot the big, obvious problems, right? Like a machine that's completely broken down. But what about all those hidden losses? You know, the small stops, the slightly slower cycles, those minor defects. That's where OEE comes in. It's the tool that puts all those little pieces together so you can see the complete picture.
Probably the easiest way to think about OEE is like a report card for your machine. It doesn't just give you a simple pass or fail. No, it gives you a single, comprehensive score that tells you exactly how well that piece of equipment is doing its job. It just simplifies all that complexity into one really powerful number.
Okay, so what's actually inside this report card? How in the world is that final score calculated? Let's dive in and decode the formula. We're going to break down the 3 critical components that make up OEE.
So OEE is really considered the gold standard for measuring manufacturing productivity. And here's why. It doesn't just look at one thing. See, before OEE, you might track uptime, or maybe your quality score. But looking at them separately can be super misleading. OEE gives you the full, honest picture by combining 3 very different aspects of performance.
All right, first up is availability. And this is all about time. It answers a really simple question. Was the machine running when it was supposed to be running? Any time lost to things like breakdowns or material shortages, or even just setups and changeovers, all of that is going to lower your availability score.
Next up, we've got performance. And this one is key, because even if a machine is technically running, it might not be running at its best. This component measures speed loss. I'm talking about those little micro stops or cycles that are just running a tiny bit slower than their ideal time. It captures all the ways a machine is underperforming even while it's active.
And finally, we have quality. Because let's be real, it doesn't matter how long or how fast you run if you aren't making good parts, right? This component tracks the percentage of units that are produced correctly the first time, with no need for any rework. Any scrap or defects? Well, that's going to hit your quality score hard.
And putting it all together couldn't be simpler. You just multiply the 3 scores together. Availability times performance times quality equals your final OEE score. What's so brilliant about this is how it shows you that a weakness in just one of these areas can dramatically pull down your entire overall effectiveness.
Okay, so you've done the math and you've calculated your score. But is that number good? Is it bad? Is it just average? To know that, you've got to understand the benchmarks that are used across the industry.
I mean, a score of, let's say, 75% might sound pretty good on paper, but what does it actually mean in the real world of manufacturing? To really understand your score, you need something to compare it to.
And here they are. These are the benchmarks. An OEE score of 85% is considered world-class. That's a fantastic target to aim for. A more typical score for a lot of manufacturers is somewhere around 60%. And, well, if you're below 40%, that's a really clear signal that there's some significant room for improvement.
All right, theory is great and all, but let's see how this actually plays out in a modern factory. How do teams use OEE not just to measure stuff, but to actively diagnose and solve problems right there on the shop floor?
So in today's smart factories, nobody is calculating this with a pencil and paper, you know? Manufacturing Execution Systems, or MES, they calculate OEE automatically and display it on these real-time dashboards. This lets supervisors see trends, drill down into the root causes of downtime, and spot bottlenecks pretty much as they happen.
Okay, let's look at a real-world example here. Imagine a production line with a really strong 92% availability and a near-perfect 98% quality. At a quick glance, you'd think things are going great, but the OEE calculation reveals a performance score of only 78%, and that instantly draws your attention to the real problem.
So what does that tell us?
It means the biggest loss wasn't from some obvious breakdown or a bunch of bad parts. Nope, it was from that hidden thief of efficiency. The machine was simply running too slow, probably because of a ton of small, unrecorded stops. OEE made an invisible problem totally visible.
OEE is already an incredibly powerful tool, but its story is far from over. Let's wrap things up by taking a quick look at where this metric is heading, especially now in the age of Industry 4.0.
But before we look forward, let's do a quick recap. If you remember nothing else from this, remember this. Availability is all about time, performance is all about speed, and quality is all about making good units. It's really that simple.
Now, looking ahead, this is where it gets really cool. OEE is set to become even smarter. By combining it with things like artificial intelligence and predictive analytics, systems won't just report on problems that have already happened, they'll be able to detect patterns and predict future losses, turning OEE from a reactive report card into a proactive, real-time decision engine.
So, we'll end with this thought. OEE is so much more than just a number. It's a narrative. It tells you the story of what's really happening on your factory floor. So the question I'll leave you with is, what story is your number telling you?